Hey everyone, welcome to Two Young Men. I'm Youngmin, and today on the show, I'm joined by a friend of mine, Jason Queen. Just to give you some context, Jason and I went to the same college, took the same major class, and we both work for the Liberal Party of Canada, where we dedicated ourselves to advocating for the vulnerable populations and also supporting elected officials as well, just getting people, especially young folks, voice heard in the political agenda. And we also study LSAT together. And Jason was ultimately admitted to the University of Toronto Law School. As for the reputation, UOT is the best law school in Canada, without a doubt. So thanks for joining, Jason.
Yeah, happy to be here, and it's nice
Yeah,
to chat with you again.
yeah, no problem. How are you doing?
Good. It's as I was kind of saying before we started the interview here, it's busy, busy
Yeah,
always, but
right.
it's a lot of fun too. And so I think if you can find the fun in the stress, then you'll be
Mhm.
all right when you go to law school.
Right, totally. You almost just finished your first year at law school, right?
Yeah, so I'm just coming up
Yeah.
on my last exams next week for my first year.
Wow. I mean, I can't even imagine how demanding your for now may have been. Were you able to keep up with work was?
Yeah, for sure. I think
Yeah.
a lot of it is just time management
Mhm.
and being able to prioritize. I think that's a skill that'll apply to
Yeah.
your LSAT studying, to your law school experience, and to jobs in general. So I think that's
Oh, wow.
something to develop early on,
For sure.
and just being able to do that, kind of have the priorities set, and then being able to stay organized and disciplined has made
Oh,
it not too difficult. I think law school gets a bad reputation for being impossible, but I think
right.
there's ways to go about it where you don't hate it too much.
Yeah, despite the hectic that you just mentioned, kudos to you for making through your first year. Yeah,
Yeah, I
yeah.
appreciate it.
Yeah, no worries. Let me just start by, I mean, just this is not destined to be a commercial for my tutoring service to young men,
Mhm.
but for the young folks, especially who's pursuing a law degree in
Mhm.
either Canada or US, get some big facts and biases, not only for LSAT, but also admission cycle, which is also another demanding cycle.
Yeah.
So I would like to start off by asking asset related question. When did you start studying and for how long?
Yeah, so I'm probably not the best example of this. I think I started studying for my LSAT about 2 months before.
Oh,
And
okay.
so, yeah, I really cut it close. I didn't think I would do too well on my first one, so
Oh,
I was
wow.
juggling it with my undergraduate studies, and
Mhm.
I decided to take it. I wasn't even sure if I wanted to do law school quite yet.
Yeah.
I was like I don't know if I have the grades stuff like that for it yet.
Mhm.
But then I was doing well enough in school where I was like, oh, I'll give it a shot at least. And
Yeah.
so yeah, 2 months before I was like, hey, I'm gonna start studying for this. And what I pretty much did was just kind of write practice tests a lot,
Okay.
and continuing to write practice tests and then kind of figuring out what my weak spots were. So for me, it was logic games.
Yeah.
I was awful at logic games, terrible.
Okay.
Luckily, I was kind of a natural at the other two categories, the logical
So,
reasoning and the reading comp. Definitely logical reasoning was my strongest, and I lucked out when I was taking it. I think I got two sections of that, so I felt
mhm.
pretty confident while I was taking the actual
Yeah.
test. But I think, yeah, just kind of taking practice tests and then obviously working on the skills that you think every time you take a practice test you're doing poorly on that, then maybe you should
Yeah.
probably take some time to focus on that. But I think doing the practice tests helps you on test day. You
Yeah.
feel like, oh, it's just another practice test. And so I think being
Right.
able to kind of gauge where you're at really helps with your confidence going into it. And then
Mhm.
obviously practicing as much as you can.
Oh, wow. All right. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
awesome. I mean, ideally, we usually give out advice for ideally 4 months to 6 months,
Yeah.
and but 2 months is a little a downside of that. But well, it's I mean, that demonstrate not only you are naturally talented, but also you were on a right path. Most efficient
Yeah.
way to do your approach to LSAT so that you can get the best score that you wanted. So
Mhm.
I mean, some of the people they found a logical game or sorry, logical reasoning and reading comprehension is way more difficult than the game sets, but you're quite a opposite. But still, there's some folks there who's still struggling with the game. But you said that practice game is the number one priority to nail it down. You also explore. But still, I mean, do the practice test. It's such a that could have been interpreted in many ways, right? So it's ambiguous. If you can just elaborate on that so that people can do the right path as you for the game section.
Yeah, for sure. So like you're asking about the tests and kind of what I focused on there, or more so on a specific category of the LSAT?
For tasks, especially for gaming in
yeah. Okay, yeah. So I
Yeah.
mean, the big thing for me was, I mean, going into logic games, I did poli-sci as my undergrad. So I wasn't used to doing diagrams and trying to solve problems that way. It was very much like I was used to written work. And so obviously with the reading comp and the logical reasoning, I was already kind of a natural because I was practicing reading so much and going through these long, dense texts for classes. And so logic games was obviously like entirely unfamiliar to me because it was, you have a certain number of things here, certain number of things here, now diagram it and try and figure it out. So I think the way I went about it was just kind of figure out the types of games there are. Obviously, that's really important. Understanding like what you're up against when you're taking the test, and then learning those types of games. And obviously, like I can't remember, like linear I think is the easiest one if I'm not mistaken. It's been so long I can't even think about it. But so obviously the linear ones started to click pretty quickly, and so obviously trying to focus on hammering down the easier ones first for me, and then working my way through the more difficult ones, because obviously when test day rolls around, like you don't necessarily know what you're going to get. And so I think making sure you get the points that you know you can get is critical, because if you focus too much on the stuff you're not good at, then on test day you might have kind of left behind the other stuff. And so you're giving up easy points. And I think that was kind of the approach I took to it, just kind of clean up those easy points, and then do your best to focus on the other stuff when you have the opportunity. Obviously with 2 months I didn't have a ton of time, and so I was kind of just lucky enough that I did okay on the test. But just practicing as much as I could, and then practicing under conditions would be my other advice, like making sure you're timing, not cheating, like disciplined with the time, and making sure that like if somebody tries to talk to you during the exam, you're ignoring them, like all that stuff. You just kind of let everybody in your life know, hey, this 2 or 3 hour block, it's not for anybody else. I'm writing an LSAT basically. And so when I took it on test day, I kind of felt like I was just doing another practice test, and that I think was really beneficial for the stress and everything like that.
Wow, to put yourself in an entirely exactly same test environments, so that you don't really get panic attack on the actual testing.
Exactly.
That's really good. I mean, one of the things I found really interesting is that being under the time constraint, you gotta get used to that condition, right? Under the time constraint, so that you can be more familiarize yourself in past environments. And
absolutely
awesome job on letting people know that you're on a task mode, and you actually do simulate yourself in a
that's one thing I think you won't get from the books and stuff like that, is just making sure that everybody around you knows what you're going through, and making sure they're supportive of what you're doing. I think some people probably get caught up in, their family's doing this and that, and so it's like, oh, you got to come to this dinner tonight, and it's like, well, no, the LSAT's in 2 weeks. And so I think like being able to have like a good support circle around you, and having everybody understand that, you know what, this is gonna suck for a little while, but once it's over, it's over, and I'll be able to like get into law school, or kind of do whatever you want to do with that score. I think is a big part of it. And so that would be kind of additional advice outside of the actual studying, would just be to make sure your social environment is conducive to your learning.
True. I think it's a really important mindset, because I still recall that you're saying while you're studying LSAT, I think it was somewhere in between summer last year, you were saying, I have a party just tonight, but what will you're gonna do study for a little bit before doing the party. 'Cause
Yeah,
at that point, you're having your friend over in your house, so that.
yeah,
But even if that kind of party mode going on, we're pretty much set to study outside, right? That's really important
yeah.
mindset mentality.
Absolutely. And I think, I mean, it's
Yeah.
good practice for law school too, because you got to obviously balance the social stuff
Mhm.
with your studying. And so being able to kind of take some time and say, okay, I'm going out tonight. I'm going to
Yeah.
study for 2 hours before I go out,
Mhm.
rather than kind of spending extra time getting ready or whatever you would usually do, you know? It's
Yeah.
just I think those little things make a huge difference in your preparation and kind of how well you are doing in this stuff.
Perfect. That's
Mhm.
awesome. Well,
But I
just
also would recommend not sacrificing your social life. Definitely
of
try and
course.
maintain a bit of a social life because you'll
Yeah.
go crazy. At least for me. I know some people can probably sit in their room and absolutely drill away at the books for days at a time, but for me, like I get pretty stir crazy. So you definitely got to find a balance.
True. Yeah. That's one of the things I really emphasize on students because it's really demanding study, right?
Mhm.
It's makes you think in a logical way. The more you study, I mean, typically speaking, the more you study, the better chance you get the high score, like in general, when it comes to
Yeah.
academy. But LSAT, not necessarily.
Hmm.
Anytime efforts you put in doesn't necessarily need to or convert it to score, right? So that's why it's really
Yeah.
important to maintain your lifestyle, social life, and
Hmm.
studying. I
Yeah,
totally agree
absolutely.
with
The
you.
mental
Yeah.
health aspect, and stress on test day. I mean, I know that gets a lot of people. I mean, if anybody's watched Suits, you know,
Oh
Rachel on
yeah.
that show is brilliant, but every time the test rolls around, she can't pull it off.
Yeah.
And I think that's an accurate representation of what a lot of people are going through with the LSAT.
Right.
Is the stress of test day, and you know the time crunch is a big thing that people aren't necessarily used to. I mean, I know for me, at least with undergraduate exams, I usually could finish early and
Oh
kind of
well.
have time to edit my essays or whatever or go through my questions again. But
Mhm.
with the LSAT, you're really got the time constraint, and it's the exact same
True.
with law school exams. When we're taking
Oh.
exams here, I mean, anybody I think could do law school exams if they had
Mhm.
infinite time to go through their material and really develop a legal argument. What it
Same
comes
as
down to is
LSAT. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. What it comes down to is can you do it in 3 hours when there's three different questions you have to answer?
Mhm.
And so yeah, I think everybody can do it, and it's just a matter of maintaining your mental health so that you
Oh
don't
wow.
freak out on test day.
Well, yeah, in line with that law school experience, I mean, to just switch gears a little bit, um, uh, like some of the folks out there, audience
Mhm.
are from South Korea, and you've had military experience, and like all of the Korean people had to go through their military duty at some point. I mean, it's compulsory compared to yours. It's voluntary, right? But
Yeah.
I was just wondering for them, um, were you able to reflect your military experience to your personal statements? And if so, do you find that helpful?
Yeah, so I'll put a disclaimer. My military experience was very brief.
Okay,
I left during training, so I
okay.
don't have the full experience to play on. But I think definitely the discipline aspect has helped
Mhm.
me. I mean, even for my brief time there, they're drilling it home to you that you need to be disciplined,
Right.
and that's just a skill you need to have in every facet of your life if you want to do well. But I think especially when it comes to law school and LSATs and everything.
Yeah.
Like if you're giving up time or doing these other things where you know you probably shouldn't be doing them, but you're doing them
Yeah.
because it's fun or it because it
True.
feels good to take time off or whatever. Like obviously, as we were saying there, you should take some time off, but you got to
Yeah.
know what the right amount is. And if you're taking off more than you should because you don't want to go back to the books,
Yeah.
that's a huge issue. So I think the discipline is a big aspect. And then also just I mean, I'm Ukrainian, and so part of my
Mhm.
reason for going into the military was the Canadian combat engineers were training the Ukrainian combat engineers, and I wanted to kind of help with that objective.
Yeah.
But after I left, I was like, if I'm going to work as hard as I am in the military, I want to try law school first. And so I went into undergrad, and I kind of always kept that with me. I was studying stuff, learning about international relations, and seeing how I could potentially help Ukraine that way. And then after that, in my personal statement, I obviously included that, hey, I went to the military for this reason. But obviously it was a weight between things I wanted to do in life. And so going to school, and trying law school first was kind of something I was like, I made this choice between these two big things. And I think that was kind of how I incorporated it. But I think, for South Korean people who are participating in the military and deciding on law school as the route they want to go later, I think, definitely hone in on that discipline aspect. And also, I mean, pride, take pride in what you've done, and doing it for the team and for the country and stuff like that, I think is a big part of it. Obviously, the law schools are looking for people who are going to make the most out of the law school experience, whether that's getting the best grades, or it's finding the best jobs, or it's being the best contributor to the community. They're looking for people who are going to give it their all. And I think if you can reflect on your time in the military and talk about how you made the most of it, and how it was a difficult thing and all this stuff, but you came out of it with a better perspective on things, I think it's the best way to go about it.
Okay, it's great to know, actually. Well, so admission cycle is as same hectic as studying LSAT, and because you have to do finalize your personal statements and reference letter from your professor or employer or something like that. And how did you manage? I mean, like, what was your main focus on writing your personal statements, first of all? And second, which one would be a priority when it comes to selecting your referees or reference letter? Those two are the main aspects of your application, right?
I think I don't actually think University of Toronto even looks at references. I know they look at the rest of the process, but most of the other Canadian schools do, and I did have references. So I'll start with kind of the personal statement, and focusing on that. I think for me, the biggest thing was like authenticity. They get thousands of applications every year, and the worst thing that you can do, the absolute worst thing you can do, and this is what the law firms tell you too, about coming into your interviews, is be authentic. Don't try and tell them a story that you think they would want to hear. Obviously, write it in a way where you're selling yourself, but tell an authentic story about yourself. Be authentic about why you want to go to law school. Be honest about what led you there, and your inspirations and all that stuff. And I think that's probably the most important thing, because again, they get so many applications every year that if you're writing a cookie cutter personal statement because you think, oh, this is what law schools want to hear, they're not going to take the time even to consider it as much, because it's like, oh, well, we have 1,000 of these cookie cutter ones, but then we have this one that really stands out because the person told a story. And so just being able to use your experience and tell a story. And one thing for me, I was lucky enough that my resume was pretty dense. Like, I had a lot of work experience, a lot of volunteer experience. And so when it came to writing my personal statement, I had so much stuff that I was cutting stuff out, and I was like, oh, I can't include that even though I'd like to. And so for anybody who's studying for the LSAT and has some time between now and law school, I mean, I think one big thing is be involved in things. And I think everybody kind of knows that to make yourself competitive, you got to try and be involved in things. But I think that's a huge aspect of it. And so, with the personal statement, tell a story, obviously sell yourself, obviously look for qualities that you think they would be looking for in a good law student. But I think use your experiences to share those, rather than making it explicit that you have those skills and then talking about your experiences elsewhere. That would be my advice for the personal statement. And then can you repeat the second question? I talked too long there.
Well, no worries. So what was
the references. Yeah. Okay. So for that, I just obviously check like the school websites and make sure you're getting what they're looking for. I mean, I know some schools favor academic references only. Some schools would be fine with a professional reference and, and an academic reference. And so for me, I was lucky enough to have good mentors throughout my undergrad studies, through like volunteering and working with profs and stuff like that. And so one prof that I worked really close with, I went to her for a reference, and that was kind of like an easy one because it was the reference I wanted the most too. And so it was kind of easy we had worked together close enough that it was not a difficult process. And then the other one was through volunteering with like a nonprofit organization, and I just went to one of the people who was in like a leadership position with the organization and said, hey, like I'm applying for law schools, they have like a template here of stuff they need or whatever, would you be able to do that for me? And so that was kind of the process. It was because I was involved with so much stuff, I think it was very easy for me. Just because I kind of knew exactly who I thought would be a good mentor. But for people who maybe it's not as easy, what you're looking for, or in a referee is somebody who actually knows you well enough to talk about you. That's a big part of it. Like if you find a professor that doesn't know you at all, they're obviously not going to be able to say as much about you as a candidate. And that's not to say like don't ask your professors if you don't have any other options, but make sure that if you're finding a professor, it's the one who knows you the best and is able to speak about you the best that any prof can. And then obviously, has good opinions of you is an obvious one. Like if somebody doesn't like you, don't use them as a reference, because then that probably isn't good for your application. And then, other than that, just what skills, if you have like an abundance of options, what skills do you want to highlight? And find a referee who can speak about those skills the best, I think it would be. But most people are probably in a situation where they don't have an abundance of references. So just finding the people who can talk about you the most authentically, but also the most positively would be kind of the two things I'd be looking for.
That's great. I mean, you touched upon quite a lot, but one of the things I really I find really impressive is being frank as much as possible. It's really important. And also people are concerned about selecting their referees because they said, well, I don't know any of the high profile people. I don't know any of the reputable famous people I know. That doesn't really matter for what you sell, right? It's as long as they know you a lot. It's just shaking hands in a one public event doesn't really necessarily resonate with them, right?
No, so definitely not.
Get to know about you a lot, right? So,
and one thing that's good about the reference thing is it's showing your ability to build connections too. That's like part of the aspect of having a reference, is that you built a connection with them where they would want to vouch for you. And so obviously, like if you've shaken hands with somebody once, using them as a reference is a little peculiar, even if they said yes, because unless they're lying, like what are they going to really say about you that makes it sound like you guys have a good connection, and so and obviously, if you're in a situation where you don't have any references off the top of your mind, there's still time. I think applications for Ontario are due like November or something, so you can volunteer all of this summer, and you'll have potential references for your next cycle, or talk to a prof that you'd want to work with over the summer, and sometimes you're not going to get paid for that work, and that's one thing I've kind of learned is some profs really prefer to have you paid for working for them, and other ones just don't have it in the budget, and you got to be willing to work for free sometimes if what you need out of it is a reference. Obviously know your worth. Like if you're getting worked to the bone and they're taking advantage of you, don't do that. But I think being willing to kind of jump on those opportunities. And just to kind of reiterate that about me, I think what made me a strong candidate for the application process and everything is that's something I've always done is if there's an opportunity, if I see a door, like I'll go through it, and so jumping on opportunities is really important because it helps you flesh out your resume and your personal statement. And when I was interviewing for jobs this summer, I had so much I was able to talk about my experience wise, and I was never scrambled for trying to find something to talk about because I had all these experiences because I was going out and getting those opportunities. And I think that would probably be my number one advice for everybody interested in going to law school and interested in pursuing a career in general, is just find opportunities and take them when they're available. Don't pass them up.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Law school experience. Well, that's a topic a lot of people will also be curious about. And because law school, there's a bunch of opportunities or events, say cleaning experience or summer internship, and and on top of the class or studying wise, there's a lot of things you can join as you can participate, a lot of meetings, events, right? What do you make of that? How do you utilize your opportunities that's provided in law school, like clinic? Were you doing clinic, or were you able to get the summer internship, or how's it in general law school like looks like for those folks who don't know anything about life in law?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, it's very busy, and time management is a huge part of everything. I think what it comes down to, like, I've been lucky enough to be involved in one of the clinics that the university offers, doing international human rights work. And I think most schools kind of make it easy for you to get involved in the clinics if you're seeking that experience, because I mean, obviously these clinics are underfunded and all this other stuff, and they're doing good work, and so they want more hands-on. And I mean, certain schools do it different ways, but I know here they do it kind of like a lottery system. So you rank your choices for clinics, and then you kind of get selected. Usually you'll get your first choice, but sometimes it might be like your second or third choice, just depending on how competitive it is. Like certain clinics obviously get more interest based on what people are trying to do. So I think, being able to juggle that with schoolwork is difficult for sure, but they for one are aware of the pressure that a student is under. So most of these clinics, I think, aren't trying to make you choose between them or the grades. I think it's been manageable, at least on my end, to get this stuff done. I think the other aspect is, like job applications, like that's that ate up, I think, a massive chunk of me and all my classmates this term. The early part of this term was all, getting your resume formatted in the way that law firms want to see it, because they have like a 2-page maximum rule in Canada, and then for like the American firms they have a 1-page maximum, and so fitting all your stuff in your resume, making sure you're focusing on the right stuff is a pretty big challenge. And you're definitely gonna be like trimming and stuff like that if you have a dense resume. If not, like, you're still gonna be trying to make it look good so that you have the right skills on it. So that was, I mean, a huge part of it. And I think what it comes down to is time management and knowing that you're not in it alone. Like every other law student is also doing all this other stuff. And so you're all graded on a curve. You're all going through similar experiences. And so being able to kind of prepare for exams when it rolls around, because I don't know how it is at every school, but for our school, it's 100% exams at the end of the term. And so you're taking this 100% exam at the end of the term. So as long as you're staying on top of your stuff throughout the term, you can kind of have like that final, like the period that I'm in right now, where it's the final like month, 3 weeks or so, where you're really now starting to focus only on exams. So just being able to like juggle that is the skill set, and I think it's manageable. And law school really gets a bad reputation for being impossible and miserable and all this other stuff, but you make great friendships. You find professors are really eager to help you learn. They take a real interest in making sure that like students are succeeding. I mean, I don't know if that's the same across the board, but at U of T, that's the experience I've had. There's tons of opportunities to pursue if you want them. One thing for me, I mean, one of the reasons I came to U of T was to be able to, network with people in Toronto. And so, I mean, having the confidence to reach out to people and go grab coffee sometime and do this other stuff, that's a big part of it too. And it does eat up some time. And so staying organized and staying focused, and obviously understanding that like grades are very important, but you know, not losing sight of the fact that you want to be a well-rounded candidate in whatever you do. And so for me, I was lucky enough to land a job this summer.
Yeah, that's good.
I won't talk about my grades, but I'll say like I was a well-rounded candidate. I wasn't just focused
Wow.
on the grades aspect.
Mhm.
And I think that really benefited me. Obviously, everybody's working to be the top of the class, but you know,
Right.
you got to be a candidate in other regards as well. And so being able to manage that and have the discipline and have the organizational skills to stay on top of everything
Mhm.
is what you're going to need to do as a lawyer. And so it's good to practice it right now.
Awesome. Lots of interesting points, and
Yeah.
it almost certainly brings myself to my question, because you mentioned things about law firm as well. And from what I've seen and heard, a handful of students in UOT are able to land on farms in states, right?
Yeah.
In the state of New York. And so my next question to you is, what are you leaning toward working on? Are you gonna work at Canada, or you pursuing a law firm in a big law in the United States? Or what's
Yeah.
your goal after post graduation?
Yeah, so I want to work in big law in
Okay,
Canada though.
that's good.
I'm not
Yeah.
too, I mean, New York sounds lovely. It's a different
Mhm.
culture.
Yeah.
It's a different lifestyle, further away from home. Obviously there's charms to it as well, more money, but you know, you make these sacrifices, you trade off.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping to do big law in Toronto. And luckily enough, I got a job this summer doing something that I want to be doing as a career. And so I think if
Mhm.
I could kind of stick with that, that's the mission. I don't want to give details about where I'm working, obviously, but
Okay.
I'm like a big international trade nerd. I
Mhm.
really like international trade law and
Yeah.
international relations through economics, and so that's the type of law I'm going to be doing, hopefully as a career.
That's awesome, fantastic. I really
Yeah,
hope you like wishing you the best on your law firm journey, and
yeah, I
as you
appreciate it.
succeed in your law school life as well. Well,
Yeah, thank you so much.
yeah, no worries. I know you have big exams upcoming, so I think we should probably wrap up here.
Yeah.
Just before I let you go, would there would it be possible for anybody to connect to you if they have any questions, or
Mhm.
some question, or get some feedbacks from you? Any other ways to reach
Yeah,
out to you?
yeah, for sure. I have
Yeah.
LinkedIn. If you look me
Oh
up
yeah,
on
yeah.
LinkedIn,
Okay.
you can
Yeah.
kind of just look for JD candidate, University of Toronto. I should be on there.
Yeah.
And then I have Twitter, but my Twitter is mostly just like news retweets. So you could follow me
Yeah.
there, message me, and then I'll give you my email address. And if
Mhm.
anybody messages you
For
and wants
sure.
to get in contact with me, they can reach out that way as well.
Awesome. Thanks so much for
Yeah,
your willingness. Yeah.
yeah, of course, my
Yeah.
pleasure.
Yeah. It's been great. Jason Queen, University of Toronto JD student, and it was awesome. But I'm really hoping everyone enjoyed this show, and thanks for coming on, Jason.
Yeah, of course. Thanks for having me.
Have a great day. Thanks.
Yeah, you as well. Take care.
Yeah.
Bye.
Take care. Bye.